Good morning, fellow students. Good morning, Mr. Halcon. We are the first group and we welcome you to our presentation of the case study, A Strategic Decision of Petronas Gas BERHAD, an oil and gas company in Malaysia. Petronas is a powerful global energy business with presence in over 50 countries, developing and supplying energy and solutions that fuel society's progress in a responsible and sustainable manner. Sustainability is at the foundation of what they do, as they harness the good in energy to elevate and enhance life. People are their strength and partners for growth, motivating their enthusiasm for innovation to move towards the future of energy sustainability. Petronas has always been driven by a desire to improve the lives of individuals, communities, and organizations. Since 1974, their growth strategy has changed to meet shifting economic and social requirements. They are definitely passionate about progress. Petronas' logo simplicity depicts a human-centered business that inspires and fosters talent while also contributing to the community. The solid circle represents the untapped potential in people, communities, and environment. The triangle represents the link between the federal state and Petronas. The logo mark, created with a single continuous stroke, represents their zeal for finding new solutions and advancement. Values, vision, and mission will be discussed next by Ms. Patricia and Mes.
Thank you, Liza. Values. The values of Petronas embedded in culture and backbone of business conduct, reflecting our sense of duty and responsibility to contribute to the well-being of peoples and nation wherever we operate. First, loyalty. Second, integrity. Third, professionalism. Fourth, cohesiveness. Next, the vision and mission. Vision, to be leading gas infrastructure and utilities company. Mission, to develop and add value to petroleum resources wherever it operates, converting resources into higher value product that would satisfy the needs customer and bring benefit to the people. Next.
Thank you, Ms. Patricia. As for their objectives, PETRONAS aims to deliver energy solutions that fuels progress in a responsible manner. Their commitment is to conduct and grow business in ways that contribute positively to society and the environment. Aligned with their statement, a progressive energy and solution partner enriching lives for sustainable future. As for their capabilities, PETRONAS operations are divided into four core business segments. These are gas processing, gas transportation, utilities, and regasification. Gas processing is an industrial process designed to purify raw natural gas by removing impurities, contaminants, and higher molecular mass hydrocarbons to produce what is known as pipeline quality dry natural gas. They process its natural gas from offshore peninsular Malaysia and distribute to the customer in power generation and other industries such as petrochemical. The Petron Gas BERHAD or PGB runs gas transportation via gas pipeline network which sends gas for the consumption of power plants and other industry customers across peninsular Malaysia. The pipeline network has the capacity to transport up to 3,500 mmscfd or million standard cubic feet per day of gas. The PGB utility business production is conducted at two complexes, namely Utility Curti in Terengganu and Utilities Quebec in Paha. Their utility product serves customers across many industries with a wide range of products maintaining excellence in plant operation. Regasification, converting liquefied gas back to natural gas at atmospheric temperature. They have a regasification terminal in Barangay Undang, RGTSU, began its commercial operation in the second quarter of 2013, while regasification terminal in Penrang, RGPT, began its commercial operation in the fourth quarter of 2017. Their service includes LNG regasification, LNG reloading, gassing up, cooling down. For the pestle analysis, it will discussed to you by Mr. Rich William.
Thank you, Mr. Sario. And now we will discuss the pestle analysis for Petronas. So before we start, let's discuss first the importance of the pestle to Petronas. So the use of pestle analysis to Petronas strategy and competitive landscape may aid the firm in identifying the key external factors that shape the business strategy and competitive landscape, and also it may assist the company's decision-making process. It is also necessary to formulate effective plans and the achievement of long-term development objectives. Here is the framework of pestle analysis that affects and may affect Petronas. Under pestle, we have the political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and legal factors. Under political, Petronas may consider the following. First is the Petronas is fully owned by the Malaysian government. Next is war between Ukraine and Russia. Next is changing policies. And lastly, for political factor is the Petroleum Income Tax Act of 1967 of Malaysia. Next is the economic aspect. Here are the some factors that Petronas may take into consideration. First is the gross domestic product or GDP. Next is interest rates. Next is exchange rates. And lastly, for economic aspect is the COVID-19 pandemic. When conducting a macro-environmental study, Petronas must take into account the following social factors. First is the demographic trends. Second is spending patterns and behavior. And lastly is the class distribution and societal norms. The next factor is the technological factor. Petronas may include the following aspect. First is the social media marketing. Next is the integration of the Internet of Things, also known as IoT. Next is solutions for communication. And lastly, for technological factor is the cloud computing. For environmental aspect, Petronas may should also consider the following factors. First is the Net Zero 50. Net Zero 50 is an international scientific consensus that in order to prevent the worst climate damages, global net human caused emission of carbon dioxide or CO2 need to fall by about 45% from 2010 levels by 2030, reaching net zero around 2050. The next factor in environmental aspect is the Environmental Quality Act of 1974. Next is weather and climatic condition, and lastly is the climate change. The last factor in pestle analysis is the legal factor. Under the legal factor, Petronas should consider the following aspect. First is the legislations applicable to the oil and gas industries in Malaysia. Example of these are the Petroleum Development Act of 1974, Environmental Quality Act of 1974, Excise Act of 1976, Exclusive Economic Zone Act of 1984, and other legislation that is applicable to the industry. Next is the application of Malaysian law to oil and gas activities located in the offshore. And lastly, for the legal factor, it is the oil and gas industry contracts. Example of these are the contract between owner and operators, production sharing contract, risk service contract, joint operating agreement, and joint study agreement. That's all for the pestle analysis of Petronas. Next is the Porter's 5 forces, which will be discussed by Ms. Frances Ann Camalong.
Thank you, Rich. So now, let's tackle about the Porter's 5 forces of Petronas company. The Porter's 5 forces model can be used to assess the attractiveness of the industry in which Petronas operates in terms of inherent profit potential. Next. According to Porter's Five Forces framework, the competitive environment in an industry is influenced by five forces: the threat of new entrants, the rivalry among existing firms, the bargaining power of suppliers, the bargaining power of buyers, and the threat of substitute products. First force, the threat of new entrants is relatively weak or low due to the following reasons. First is the strong product differentiation within the industry because companies that operates within the industry offers differentiated products rather than standardized products. Next is due to the barriers to entry such as the high capital requirement and the government rules and regulations. The capital requirements in the industry are high, making it difficult for new entrants to establish businesses due to the high cost involved. Therefore, businesses need to raise a large amount of money to cover the necessary expenditures. New entrants must meet the requirements established by the government in order to begin their operations in the industry. This comprises a series of examinations and interviews in order to obtain a license and ensure that new entrants adhere or follow to the government-created oil and gas legislation. So all of these factors make the threat of new entrants a weaker force within its industry. Next. The second is the rivalry among existing firms. So these forces moderately affect the industry due to the following reasons. First, Petronas has few competitors in the industry. The majority of these are also quite large in size. This means that firms in the industry will not make any moves without being unnoticed. Additionally, very few competitors have a large market share. This indicates that they will engage in a competitive behavior in order to establish a presence and eventually become market leaders. Next one, the product produced by Petronas are significantly differentiated. For instance, Petronas Chemical Group Limited manufactures petrochemicals that can be utilized in a variety of applications, including cooking, transportation, personal care, agriculture, and infrastructure. As a result, competing enterprises find it difficult to win over each other's customer as each of their products is unique. This contributes to a moderate competitive force among industry firms. Last reason is the exit barriers within the business are extremely high due to the huge capital, asset investment required, and the government regulations and restrictions. Exiting the market may result in significant losses for companies in terms of customers' loyalty and equipment depreciation. As a consequence, competition among existing firms acts as a moderate or average force within the industry. The third one, the bargaining power of suppliers moderately affect the company. While the industry has a large number of suppliers, the products they produce are fairly standardized, less differentiated, and have low switching costs. As a result, Petronas has the option of switching suppliers if the materials or components given by one do not fulfill the requirements and demands. Next, the industry in which Petronas engages has a large number of suppliers in comparison to the buyers, which are gas and oil corporations. This means that suppliers have less price control. Additionally, Petronas company is a significant customer for its suppliers, so this means that the profitability of the business is intrinsically tied to the profitability of its suppliers. As a result, these suppliers must offer competitive prices, making their bargaining power a moderate force within the industry. The fourth one, the bargaining power of buyers is relatively weak or low force. The product differentiation within the industry is high due to Petronas providing a wide range of products. Each product has its own distinct standards that meets customer requirements, which means that buyers are unable to find other businesses producing a particular product. This difficulty in switching makes the bargaining power of buyers a weaker force within the industry. Another reason, Petronas offers high-quality products, and alternatives given by other companies may not be of comparable quality. Even if high-quality alternatives exist, they will be more expensive than Petronas. Another is due to the high switching cost. This is because of the high degree of differentiation among Petronas products and the lack of substitutes, which contributes to customer psychological switching cost. Therefore, customers are not willing to switch away from Petronas, which makes its bargaining power relatively low. So all of these factors reduce buyers' bargaining power within the industry, making it weak or low force. The last one is the threat of substitute. This force is also relatively weak or low that affects the company. There are relatively few substitutes available for the products offered by Petronas. The few accessible substitutes are likewise produced by low-profit industries. This means that the industry in which Petronas operates, there is no ceiling on the highest profit that businesses can generate. The last reason, the few available substitutes are of great quality but significantly more expensive. This means that buyers are less likely to switch to substitute products. This reduces the threats of substitute for Petronas, making it also relatively weak or low force. So that's all for Porter's 5 forces. So now let's move on to Petronas life cycle to be discussed by Mr. Cesare.
Now we will just go on to the next discussion is the Petronas life cycle. First is the startup stage. The restoration of the parliament in 1971 has been ruled by the National Front, Barisan Nasional, the heirs to the Alliance Party, and the originators in 1971 of the New Economic Party. It is designed to improve the economic position and its relation to other foreign corporations. The Malaysian government chose to create a state company rather than using taxes, production, or limit its leasing or other familiar instrument of supervision. They created the Petroleum Development Act in October 1974, which established Petronas, an oil and gas company in Malaysia, and started it with its legal monopoly on oil and gas activity resources. Now, the growth stage will be discussed to you by Ms. Liza.
Thank you, third. For the growth stage, Petronas initially moved downstream in 1976 when ASEAN picked it to build the second ASEAN Joint Industrial Project, a urea factory. ABF, founded in Sarawak, currently sells ammonia and urea worldwide. Next, Malaysia became a net oil exporter in 1976, but its modest exports disqualified it from joining OPEC. As a result, Petronas has gained some commercial and political freedom, bolstering its main objective, Malaysian self-reliance. Until 1978, when the government created Petronas Gali, a subsidiary for oil exploration and production. Petronas just monitored its international partners' activities. It began in an offshore oil field. Next. In 1974, it ordered 5 LNG tankers for Malaysian International Shipping Company, of which it held 61%, to acquire control of its own fleet, unlike cargo transportation, which is governed by international convention. Petronas has signed contracts for the sale and supply of LNG to Tokyo Electric Power and Tokyo Gas from 1977 to 1982. Under this contract and another Inc. in 1990, Malaysia LNG would supply Saibu gas of Fukuoka in southern Japan for 20 years starting in 1993. Next. And lastly is to recuperate expenditure. Petronas Gali, founded in 1982, an exploration and production firm with branches Societe Nationale. By 1980, oil and gas accounted for 24% of Malaysian exports, and the government chose to tax them at 25%. The rest of the life cycle will be discussed by Ms. Jacqueline Banyaga.
Thank you, Liza. The next stage is the shakeout stage. In this stage, the growth rate of revenue, cash flows, and profits starts slowing down, since this is the part where the company is struggling as the industry approaches its maturity. For Petronas, the shakeout stage happened during 1986, when the first drastic fall in oil prices happened, and this cut the Malaysia's income by more than a third. The response of Petronas in this situation was to sign 22 new contracts with 31 companies from 11 countries in 1989. But this discouraged having interest with their new arrangements. Next. Then, by 1990,
252 service stations carried the Petronas brand, 20 on a franchise basis, and 50 were planned by Petronas itself. Next, at the maturity stage, companies realize maximum revenue, profits, and cash flows because customer demand fairly high and consistent. For Petronas, its maturity stage happened when the government and Petronas have aimed to encourage the replacement of fast depleting oil within Malaysia and simultaneously to foster heavy industries which can help reduce the country's overwhelming dependence on exporting its natural resources. Afterwards, they became the third largest producer of liquefied natural gas or LNG in the world, and they had acquired the ownership of Bank Bumiputera, which is the second largest commercial bank in Malaysia. Next, the last stage of the industry life cycle is the decline stage. In this stage, some companies might choose to focus on their most profitable product lines or services in order to maximize profits and stay in the industry. For Petronas, the decline stage was when they took part in joint venture with the government of Vietnam and Myanmar. And when the crisis unfolded in 1990, we were able to produce 650,000 barrels per day. From then until 1988, the proportion has fluctuated between 29% and 36%. Petronas then is not just another big oil company. It controls a crucial sector of the economy and remains, for better or worse, an indispensable instrument of state. That's all for the industry life cycle of Petronas. The next topic will be about the competitors and market, which will be discussed by Rose Lagaria.
Thank you, Ms. Jackie. So let's now move on to the strategy 7Ps analysis. Next. So this consists of product, price, place, promotion, people, process, and physical evidence. Next. So the first P is product. Individual fuel and gas, business and industry, gasoline and diesel requirements for individual customers, as well as government and domestic natural gas requirements were all met by the product of the Petronas. Next P is price. Because the government is the main decision-making body in the country, the price of Petronas is primarily determined by the government rate along with the crude oil and fuel demand. The government set prices based on global rates. As a result, any increase or decrease in the price of major oil company affects Petronas. Next, P is place. Petronas operates in 35 countries and has expanded significantly in Europe. They also account for a sizable portion of the Asian market, as Petronas headquarters are in Malaysia, a Southeast Asian country. Next P is promotion. Petronas primarily advertise in areas where the clients and target clients frequent. Petronas is also a frequent sponsor of competitive events, as well as race known as the Malaysian Grand Prix, which is an important event in Malaysia. Next. So the next P is people. Petronas employs people in a variety of departments. These individuals were trained in persuasion techniques while also showing respect and appreciation for company clients' preferences. Next P is process. Petronas has installed systems that alert distributors when stock levels are running low, ensuring that their goods are always available in retail stores. Petronas also has an online shipping procedure through which the inventory is shipped. Next P is physical evidence. Petronas markets its recognizable distinct color and logo on separate racks, making it easier for customers to recognize and shop. Petronas also has an online store where customers can view high-quality images of the products. So that is all for the strategy 7P analysis. Let's move on to the competitor analysis. Next. So the Petronas marketing strategy is aided by a thorough assessment of competitors. Competitive analysis is performed to determine the company's direct and indirect competitors' comparative positioning and market share. These are recognized competitors, analyze approaches, and compare product strengths and weaknesses. So this following are steps that Petronas can take to comprehend their main contender's strategic positioning. First is define the target business precisely. Second, recognize and generate a record of rivals for the executive. Third, analyze the product range of rivals, the market share, main advantages and disadvantages. Fourth, create a brief overview of the field and product policies of the rivals. Fifth, carry out comparison assessment of their goods and or services. And last, competitive analysis is constantly updated to create conscious and tactically sound choices. Next. So according to this graph, PETRONAS has a 31% market share in Malaysia and is ranked second after Shell in 2017. So the market share of PETRONAS. Next. So in this graph, it shows that the size of petrol stations has the highest market share in PETRONAS with a 27.5% share. So the other factors considered by the customers include facilities, brand image, accessibility, site application, and service quality, with percentages of 26.25%, 17.5%, 16.88%, 6.88%, and 5% consecutively. So according to the Pareto principle, the size of the petrol station, the facilities, and the brand image account for 8% of the market share, with the remaining factors accounting for 20%. So to ensure and increase PETRONAS market share, dealers must focus on the other 20% of factors, which are the petrol station, accessibility, and service quality. So that is all for the market share of PETRONAS. Next is market analysis by Patricia Nesta.
Thank you, Ms. Rose Ragario. Now we will proceed to market analysis. A detailed field assessment is required to develop marketing plan. The client can be rated qualitatively and quantitatively. Market consensus data will help management identify new opportunities, future trends, and how they relate to the company's strengths and weaknesses. Petronas can take correct measures to analyze the market. First, market size. Second, market trends. Third, market growth. Fourth, market profitability. Fifth, cost structure. Next is customer analysis. Businesses need to understand their customer needs, expectation, and behavior in order to develop effective marketing strategies. The, the thorough assessment of each individual customers contributes to the discovery of various client profile. Aspects to consider while constructing client profiles include: first, consumer assessment define the market gross size, including recent and potential consumer, which can be segmented. Second, consumer dataset must have some observable variations. Third, the company should also behavioral research to identify psychographic profiles. It comprises understanding, assessing the relative importance of variation. Consider in the making of purchasing decision, often known as the purchase need, buying criteria include status, comfort, quality, and size. Then, build port and build identity. Individual data should include the following component: data source, sex, household, age, place, etc. Chosen communication channels are the mass solution generates challenge for potential entertainers. Lastly, market segmentation. In order to comprehend the customer purchasing behavior, the marketing strategy of PETRONAS needs segmentation. Segmentation can achieve by investigation, consumer, geographic, demographic, behavioral, and psychographic features. Because of companies split the population into categories after purchasing behavior of client are identified through information gathering like surveys. Patronas can think or formulate various strategies in order to choose optimal marketing strategy. That's all for marketing segmentation. Let me call on Ms. Mindoro to discuss about the governance and business ethics.
Thank you, Ms. Nessa. Now, we will move on to the governance and business ethics. Next, overview. Petronas aim is to drive awareness of their zero tolerance on corruption in any form. Their shared values of loyalty, integrity, professionalism, and cohesiveness is the cornerstone to how they do business. This, alongside with the Code of Conduct and Business Ethics, or the COBE, the Petronas Corporate Sustainability Framework, as well as relevant commitments, are essential in delivering optimum shareholder value. Corporate governance. Petronas' commitment to fostering a culture of integrity, ethical behavior, and professionalism is crucial to the creation and execution of business value. Their ability to remain resilient is a direct result of their commitment to corporate governance. In view of stakeholder expectation on good corporate citizenship, their policies align with applicable laws and regulations of countries where they operate are vital in promoting a higher level of accountability and transparency. The Petronas Board of Directors, as well as its relevant subcommittees, effective leadership teams, along with the President and Group CEO, work hand in hand to ensure that all aspects of business decision making adhere to strict ethical standards. Business ethics. Petronas Code of Conduct and Business Ethics, or COBE, outlines the group's commitment to upholding the highest standards of ethics and integrity in its business activities and operations, and it applies to all employees, directors, and third parties that are associated with Petronas. Next. The COBE also contains provisions on anti-competitive practices and is accompanied by anti-bribery and corruption policy and guidelines, or the ABC manual, applicable to all employees as well as third parties, where it emphasizes their no gift policy and Petronas Integrity Compliance Framework, or the PICF. Next. Furthermore, their whistleblowing policy encourages disclosure of any type of improper misconduct, with matters raised being deliberated on whistleblowing committee. Now, we will move on to the stakeholders mapping and power interest matrix analysis. So this technique is used to categorize stakeholders based on their power or influence and interest of Petronas project. In this way, Petronas can develop strategies to manage their time and resources effectively. So employees, investors, and shareholders, as well as customers, are represented in the upper right-hand corner of the grid, which represents the high power and high interest, as they are among the most important stakeholders of Petronas Gas BERHAD. Furthermore, Petronas should remain a line of communication with them at all times to ensure their satisfaction with Petronas goals and project progress. Next. The government, on the other hand, is considered to be at the high power, low interest end of the grid because, despite of being an important stakeholder in Petronas, they do not need to be communicated with as often as closely managed stakeholders. Next. So suppliers and vendors are considered to be in the low power, high interest grid because they have advice to the project as well as advance notice of any emerging issues. So it is best for Petronas to keep in touch with them on as needed basis. And lastly, the general public is considered to be in a low power, low interest grid, for they are the Petronas' lowest priority, which Petronas can aim to keep in touch with. However, unlike the other stakeholders, Petronas does not need to spend much time communicating with them. So that is the end of the stakeholder mapping and power interest matrix analysis.
We would like to thank all of our 20 references in helping us conducting and finishing our case study.
This has been Jackie Lupi Banyaga.
This has been Francis Ann M. Kapalongan.
This has been Rose Andre Cudagario.
This has been Patricia Ann Mesa.
This has been Crystal Denise Toro.
This has been Rich Pagaduan.
This has been Rodolfo Pisario.
This has been Glyzalario, and this is the end of our case study report of Petronas Gas BERHAD, a Malaysian oil and gas company. Thank you so much for listening.